Welcome back to the Hydrogen Studies podcast. Today, we're looking at recent research exploring how hydrogen gas produced in the gut may influence hormone activity. Specifically, the conversion of stress hormones like cortisol into progestins, such as progesterone. This isn't about supplements or therapies, but about a natural occurring process driven by gut microbes and hydrogen gas. We'll break down findings from a key study published in 2024 that suggests a new biologically relevant link between the microbiome, hormonal regulation, and women's health. This is the Hydrogen Studies podcast, sponsored by Echo Water. In 2024, a groundbreaking study published in Cell uncovered something truly unexpected. Something that may redefine how we think about both hormones and gut health. The researchers, led by McCurry and colleagues, set out to understand how certain gut microbes metabolize steroid hormones, and what they found was remarkable. Specific gut bacteria can convert glucocorticoids, a class of stress hormones like cortisol, into progestins, which are crucial reproductive hormones that include progesterone and its analogs. And this was already surprising, but it got even more interesting. This microbial transformation only occurred in the presence of molecular hydrogen gas. Hydrogen, long thought to be a chemically inert byproduct of microbial fermentation, turned out to be the driving force behind this hormonal shift. Without hydrogen, the conversion simply didn't happen. Here's what's happening at the molecular level. Certain anaerobic bacteria, when exposed to hydrogen, activate a specific biochemical pathway that reduces glucocorticoids into 20A dihydroprogesterone, a known progestin. This isn't a minor tweak to hormone chemistry. It's a fundamental rewiring of hormonal signaling that originates not in the ovaries or endocrine glands, but in the gut. Even more intriguing, this reaction is catalyzed by enzymes encoded in gut microbial genes that respond specifically to hydrogen gas levels. The study mapped out the microbial species involved and showed that these conversions are highly selective, dependent on hydrogen concentrations and bacterial composition. I'll let that sink in for a moment. Your gut microbiome isn't just digesting fiber or producing vitamins. It's potentially transforming stress hormones into reproductive hormones, and hydrogen is sometimes the molecular switch that makes it happen. This flips a major paradigm in endocrinology. It suggests that our hormonal balance isn't just governed by glands and feedback loops, but also by microbial metabolism, and that hydrogen gas produced endogenously in the colon plays a pivotal role in this hidden biochemical dialogue. We often think of cortisol and progesterone as opposites, stress versus calm, catabolic versus nurturing. But this study suggests that they may be more directly linked than we realized. Under the right microbial and chemical conditions, the body may have the capacity to recycle stress into support, transforming cortisol into calming, stabilizing progestins through microbial action powered by hydrogen. This isn't just a microbiome finding, it's a hormone story, a metabolism story, and a hydrogen story, one that brings together gut health, hormonal balance, and microbial intelligence in a way science has never seen before. And if the microbiome can mediate that kind of hormonal transformation, it raises big, bold questions about what else we've been missing, and how the smallest molecules might have the biggest influence. So why is this discovery so important, especially for women? Because progesterone isn't just a reproductive hormone. It's a multi-system regulator. It balances the menstrual cycle, prepares the uterus for pregnancy, and plays a critical role in maintaining pregnancy. It also affects the brain, bones, immune system, and metabolism. After menopause, when progesterone levels drop dramatically, women often experience a cascade of health shifts: trouble sleeping, weight gain, anxiety, brain fog, weakened bones. And the transition isn't always smooth. It's not just estrogen that disappears. Progesterone vanishes too, and with it, a lot of stability. Meanwhile, glucocorticoids like cortisol, your primary stress hormones, don't drop. In fact, they often rise. Chronic stress, aging, disrupted sleep, inflammation, all of these can lead to elevated cortisol. And unlike estrogen or progesterone, cortisol doesn't care about monthly cycles. It just builds and stays. This imbalance, low progesterone, high cortisol, is part of why so many women feel overwhelmed, inflamed, and exhausted during premenopause and beyond. That's why the 2024 Cell study is so intriguing. It suggests that under the right conditions, certain gut microbes can convert that excess cortisol into helpful progestins, creating a kind of endogenous balancing system, a stress buffer built right into the microbiome, but only when hydrogen gas is present. Hydrogen gas, in this case, isn't coming from the supplements. It's being made naturally inside the gut as a byproduct of fermentation by anaerobic bacteria. And according to the study, that hydrogen serves as a molecular fuel, powering the conversion of glucocorticoids into progestins like 20A dihydroprogesterone. This is a fascinating layer of hormonal regulation and one we didn't even know existed a year ago. But here's the catch. Not every woman produces the same amount of hydrogen gas. As Yang point out in their 2025 commentary on the Cell study, endogenous hydrogen production is highly variable. It depends on a host of factors: gut microbiome composition, dietary fiber intake, history of antibiotic use, and even genetics. Women with dysbiosis, imbalanced gut bacteria, or recent antibiotic exposure may produce much less. That means some women may have a microbiome that can technically support this progesterone-boosting pathway, but not enough hydrogen to activate it. This opens up big questions. Could low hydrogen production be a hidden driver of hormone-related symptoms? Could rebalancing the microbiome or enhancing endogenous hydrogen production support women during hormonal transitions? Yang's team suggests we need to start viewing hydrogen not just as a passive byproduct, but as a regulatory molecule that helps the body adapt to stress, aging, and hormonal change. And nowhere is that adaptation more vital or more complex than in women. In response to the surprising findings published in Cell, Dr. Yang and colleagues released a 2025 commentary in Frontiers in Endocrinology titled "The Endogenous Hydrogen Gas, H2, Drives Women's Health." It's more than a response, it's a reframing of how we think about the microbiome's role in female physiology. Yang's team doesn't just marvel at the fact that gut bacteria can convert stress hormones into progestins. They ask, what else might hydrogen gas be doing inside the body, particularly in women? They raise several provocative questions. First, could low hydrogen production be a silent contributor to hormone-related disorders in women? They point out that hydrogen gas isn't consistently produced in everyone. Some individuals, so-called low hydrogen producers, have gut microbiomes that generate minimal hydrogen, even when eating high-fiber diets. This variability might help explain why some women experience more severe hormonal fluctuations, PMS, or menopausal symptoms, while others are more resilient. If hydrogen truly supports internal hormone conversions, its absence might leave women more vulnerable to imbalances. Second, could we support hormonal health by boosting hydrogen production endogenously? Yang's group notes that this isn't science fiction. Hydrogen gas is already being produced every day in the large intestine by fermentative bacteria. What's missing may not be the ability to produce hydrogen, but the conditions to support it. Diets rich in fermentable fiber, polyphenols, and prebiotics could encourage the growth of hydrogen-producing microbes. The commentary raises the possibility that even subtle dietary changes could shift hormone dynamics, not by adding hormones from the outside, but by optimizing the body's internal machinery to regulate them. Third, is this glucocorticoid to progestin reaction just the beginning? Yang's team speculates that hydrogen may play a broader regulatory role, affecting not only progesterone pathways, but estrogen metabolism, mood regulation, and even gut-brain signaling. They point out that estrogen breakdown is also handled in part by the microbiome, and that hydrogen may be involved in modulating oxidative stress and inflammation that impact estrogen-sensitive tissues like the brain, breast, and uterus. They also highlight that mood and cognition, often affected during menstrual cycles or menopause, may not just be hormonal in origin. The gut-brain axis, powered by microbial metabolites, including hydrogen, may serve as a biochemical bridge between the gut environment and the emotional landscape. If hydrogen modulates inflammation, neurotransmitters, and hormone recycling, it could help explain why microbial imbalances influence both mood and endocrine health. To be clear, Yang and colleagues aren't claiming that hydrogen gas is a miracle fix. They're simply asking us to expand the lens. Rather than seeing hydrogen as a waste product or an experimental therapy, they propose viewing it as a core player in a complex hormonal ecosystem. The gut hormone hydrogen axis might represent a missing link in women's health research, a layer of regulation that's been quietly operating in the background, influencing everything from menstrual regularity to mood resilience, fertility, and even aging. This idea doesn't replace the role of the ovaries, adrenal glands, or the brain, but it suggests that the gut microbiome and the hydrogen it produces may be a silent partner in hormonal regulation. And in doing so, it reframes hydrogen not as a niche curiosity, but as a signal, a tool, and perhaps a key to unlocking deeper understanding of the female body. So what does all this mean in everyday terms? If you're listening to this and wondering whether you should be rushing out to buy hydrogen supplements or hormone modulators, the answer at this stage is no. The science isn't suggesting that. What it is suggesting is something more subtle and more foundational. It's about asking, how can we support the body's natural ability to produce hydrogen gas in the gut? Because based on the 2024 Cell study, that hydrogen might be quietly powering hormonal conversions that support reproductive health, stress resilience, and possibly even mood regulation. Dr. Yang and colleagues emphasized in their 2025 commentary that while we're just beginning to understand the hydrogen hormone axis, there are a few simple ways to optimize endogenous hydrogen production, meaning the hydrogen gas your gut makes naturally. Let's break that down. Prebiotic-rich foods. These include high-fiber plant foods like legumes, oats, garlic, onions, bananas, and artichokes. They serve as a fuel for the anaerobic bacteria in your colon, the ones responsible for producing hydrogen gas during fermentation. When these bacteria thrive, so does hydrogen production. Fermented foods. Think kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, miso. These don't necessarily produce hydrogen directly, but they increase microbial diversity, which creates a more stable environment for hydrogen-producing species to grow and to function. Microbial diversity may be one of the most important predictors of consistent hydrogen output. Avoiding unnecessary antibiotics. Broad-spectrum antibiotics, especially when used repeatedly or without clinical need, can wipe out hydrogen-producing bacteria for weeks or even months. In low hydrogen producers, this microbial loss might eliminate the very pathways needed for cortisol to progestin conversion and potentially other hormone-regulating functions tied to hydrogen gas. What's especially fascinating is that the Cell study found that the enzymatic machinery responsible for converting cortisol into progestins was selectively activated in the presence of hydrogen. So even if the right bacteria are present, the reaction simply doesn't happen without that hydrogen signal. This introduces a compelling idea. Interventions like hydrogen-rich water, long studied for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects, might also influence hormone regulation indirectly by simulating or amplifying the same biochemical environment your gut bacteria create. Dr. Yang's team doesn't make health claims about hydrogen therapy, but they raise a question. Could hydrogen-rich interventions help support microbiome hormone signaling, not just by reducing oxidative stress, but by recreating the exact conditions that enable bacteria hormone modulation? Right now, the answer is maybe. But this maybe is rooted in a real, measurable mechanism, one that opens the door to research on everything from PMS and cycle irregularity to premenopausal mood shifts and hormone-driven sleep issues. At this stage, the focus isn't on treatment, it's on curiosity. Understanding that your body may already have built-in systems to regulate hormone levels using signals from the gut, and that hydrogen gas might be one of the key messengers. As more scientists begin to explore hydrogen's role not just as a scavenger of free radicals, but as a biochemical bridge between microbial metabolism and endocrine function, we may discover that the tools for balance were inside us all along. Let's take a moment to imagine what the future of women's health might look like if the discoveries from the Cell study and the insights raised in Dr. Yang's 2025 commentary prove to be the start of something much bigger. Picture this. During a routine hormone panel, your doctor doesn't just check estrogen, progesterone, or cortisol. They also measure hydrogen gas production in your gut as a biomarker of your body's capacity to naturally regulate and recycle hormones. Just like measuring thyroid function or vitamin D levels in your hydrogen signature could reveal how effectively your microbiome supports your hormonal balance. Now picture a world where microbiome therapies aren't just for digestion, but for hormone support. Based on your gut profile, you could receive targeted prebiotics or probiotics designed to increase the presence of hydrogen-producing bacteria. Instead of replacing hormones with external medications, your treatment might work by gently activating your body's own hormone-regulating pathways, like the one revealed in the Cell study, where hydrogen drives the microbial conversion of stress hormones into reproductive hormones. And what if we could intervene earlier? Let's say a woman under chronic stress is showing signs of elevated cortisol, disrupted cycles, or premenstrual mood swings. Today, she might be offered hormone therapy, antidepressants, or sleep medication. But in this future model, we might begin by restoring her hydrogen-producing gut ecology. supporting her microbes to transform that excess cortisol into calming, stabilizing progestins, just like the cell study showed. And again, this isn't just speculation. The enzymatic pathway for this microbial conversion exists. It's been mapped. It's powered by hydrogen gas, and it was found in a specific human gut bacteria. The gut hormone hydrogen axis might be a missing link in how we understand hormonal regulation, particularly in women. This kind of research pushes us to think differently, not just about hydrogen, but about how biology solves its own problems when given the right conditions. What was once considered metabolic waste is now emerging as a messenger molecule, a signal, and a switch with real implications for hormone health. And in this context of women's lives, marked by dynamic hormonal changes across puberty, menstrual cycles, pregnancy, premenopause, and beyond, this opens up entirely new ways to personalize care, prevent imbalance, and support resilience. Nope, we're not there yet. There are no gut-based hydrogen hormone panels on the market, no clinical protocols that prescribe fiber and fermentation to support progesterone balance, but the research is already telling us something powerful. Hydrogen isn't just a byproduct, it's a participant. It's part of an intricate, evolving conversation between your microbes, your hormones, and your health. And for women navigating the complex hormonal terrain of modern life, this could mark the beginning of a new era. One where balance comes not from overriding the body, but from listening to it more closely than we ever have before. For a long time, hydrogen gas has been considered biologically inert, too small, too simple to play a meaningful role in human physiology. But recent research is beginning to shift that view. What we're seeing now is a more nuanced picture. Hydrogen may not just act as an antioxidant, but as a regulatory molecule, quietly involved in the complex interactions between the gut, hormones, and overall health. The idea that it could help mediate hormonal pathways like the microbial conversion of stress hormones into progestins is still new, but it's supported by real data and well-defined mechanisms. In the context of women's health, where hormonal balance is influenced by stress, inflammation, microbiome dynamics, and metabolism, this emerging research raises valuable questions. We're still in the early stages, but it's clear that hydrogen deserves a closer look, not as a cure-all, but as a potential piece of the broader biological puzzle. Thanks for joining us. If this topic sparked your curiosity, consider sharing it with someone who's interested in the science of hormones, the microbiome, or the evolving landscape of women's health. This conversation is far from over, and we're just beginning to understand where it might lead. That's today's episode. Next episode, we'll be talking about the kidneys and hydrogen. Until then, stay healthy, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.